And with that, everybody came to the realization that Tom Cruise is pretty fucking crazy. But you know what? A crazy Tom Cruise in 2015 certainly a lot better than a crazy Tom Cruise in 2005. At least not jumping on couches on Oprah or anything. But welcome to Time About the Movies, everybody. Today we are wrapping up July with 3 movies. Starting off with the biggest of the new releases, and that is Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. And that is the 5th installment of the Mission Impossible series. The first one directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who previously directed Tom Cruise and Jack Reacher. And this one, Ethan Hunt is back along with his team taking on their most impossible mission yet, eradicating the Syndicate, an international rogue organization as highly skilled as they are, committed to destroying the IMF. And like I said, I think the Mission Impossible franchise by this point had gone the way of the Fast and Furious franchise by starting off as a solid movie, having a point where the sequels weren't that great, specifically Mission Impossible 2, but then slowly back rising up to where they are now, especially with the 3rd film and Ghost Protocol, and now this movie, which is a really damn good movie, but still not as good as Ghost Protocol. I mean, to me, this felt more like a Mission Impossible movie, keeping the spirit of the series while also involving more of the team other than Tom Cruise. I mean, not to say that this is a bad movie or a Mission Impossible, or not a Mission Impossible movie in general. Not at all. It feels more like this time around. We're focusing not just more on Ethan Hunt again, but more the team itself. More of the team itself overall. I mean, granted, Simon Pegg's Benji does help out a lot more in this, as does the Jeremy Renner's Brandt or Ving Rhames' Luther, but the dynamic of let's bring the whole team in on this wasn't there as much this time around like it was in Ghost Protocol. Again, not a complaint to the film itself, but just like the first Mission Impossible movie, which was a good, fun summer escapism entertainment movie, this really feels just like that. The action sequences are pretty phenomenal. It was cool to see Tom Cruise doing all of his own stunts for this, which are pretty cool. They use practical and realistic tactics to make it work overall, and that's what I think makes these Mission Impossible movies stand out overall. You can definitely tell there is more realism and more grounded stuff than going overboard on the CG, and a lot of it comes from Tom Cruise. You can see that he does put his passion into these movies, not just this, but Oblivion, Edge of Tomorrow, Jack Reacher, and he makes the role of Ethan Hunt work. He's always great to watch on screen. He also got a great cast along with him, too. Simon Pegg, Jeremy Renner, Ving Rhames are great again. And then you bring in Rebecca Ferguson, who is actually a pretty good addition overall. Although, when it comes to being the more femme fatale, badass action heroine who just exudes sexuality, nobody can ever top Paula Patton in Ghost Protocol. And even Alec Baldwin's really good in the film. Sean Harris is pretty good as the villain as well. If there is something where it does kind of stumble a little bit, it's in the story department. The story is basically, hey, we've been doing this for almost 2 decades now. Let's do an evil IMF. You know, let's go. They're basically just a story we've seen done where TV shows basically run out of ideas. Just make a villain version for the main characters. I mean, it's done well, but in terms of originality, it's nothing new or creative overall. But then again, that's the only major flaw of the movie in general. Overall, I did like this a lot. I don't think it's as good as Ghost Protocol, but what makes it hold together is the cast, the action sequences, and the great piece of summer escapism entertainment that it brings you. It is a fun film, and really, that's all you can ask for a film like this. But, yeah. So, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which, oh boy, I have been dreading this one, but I've been waiting to talk about this one for a long, long time. Let's talk about the remake of Vacation.
How about some tunes?
That right there is probably the funniest scene in the entire movie. And, you know, when you put your funniest scenes in a trailer, that's probably not a good sign in general. And the fact that this movie has to keep telling you, you know, the new Vacation will stand up on his own. I never heard of the old Vacation. Just like, anytime a movie is telling you that, it's probably not, it's probably not a good sign that they're going to put anything original or creative in this. And boy, this one definitely does not put the original or creativity in it. I mean, in the worst Vacation, at least the worst Vacation movies, European Vacation and the Vegas Vacation ones, are at least trying. This was not. Hoping to bring his family closer together and to recreate his childhood vacation for his own kids, a grown-up Rusty Griswold, played by Ed Helms, takes his wife, played by Christina Applegate, and their 2 sons, one of them played by Skylar Gisondo, who was recently in Superman, on a cross-country road trip to the coolest theme park in America, Wally World. Needless to say, things don't go quite as planned. And as I mentioned before, the Vacation series in general is not an overall great series. I mean, of the 6 movies they had made, Vacation and Christmas Vacation are the classics. European Vacation is just okay, and then Vegas Vacation is just kind of meh. And I guess if we want to throw on Christmas Vacation 2, Cousin Eddie, yeah, we'll throw that in there. Not very great. I mean, but at least that one was at least trying to. This was not. I mean, you know, a vacation movie was definitely something that was needed. And you think hiring the writers of the first Horrible Bosses movie would be a great idea. And then you see that they're going to make a Spider-Man reboot just like a John Hughes movie. And you would think these would be the perfect guys to reboot Vacation. After all, Vacation was a John Hughes script. Well, if you think the idea of a John Hughes movie is this, I think it's safe to assume that John Hughes may be spinning in his grave at the time of this release. Because, let me tell you, this was bad. This was really, really bad. I couldn't believe how terrible this movie was, especially when you had that good marketing campaign behind it, because, my God, this movie is terrible. This movie is just a film that insults everything that made the first Vacation movie such the memorable comedy that it was. I mean, let's run down all the problems with the movie. 1, Ed Helms as Rusty Griswold. I like Ed Helms, but he's not Rusty Griswold. He's basically Clark Griswold trying to act like what he thinks his son would act like at his age. You can't just do a pale imitation of Clark Griswold and expect us to believe that, oh yeah, that's Clark's son, all right. How many actors that played Clark's son in the Vacation movies? It's like, they've had like three to four different people playing these characters over the years. Like, you need to prove that Clark and Rusty are related, but not the same person. Even with Rusty, has to have this big moment where he's got to snap, and he loses his mind. When Clark loses it, it's glorious. Like in Vacation, when, you know, he's going up against his boss, you know, after the getting the Jelly of the Month Club thing, and also when he's talking about the happiest Christmas since Bing Crosby tap dance with Danny Kaye. When he does it, it's funny. When Rusty does it, it's like he's doing a straight-up parody of Clark snapping. It's not genuine, it's not realistic, and it's not funny at all. Even Leslie Mann as Audrey doesn't act like any of the other Audreys that have come before this. If you watch the other Audreys in the Vacation movies, you know that she was never like this character in this movie in particular. The way this movie portrays her. The only people in this movie that come close to acting like their normal selves are Chevy Chase and Beverly D'Angelo as Clark and Ellen. And the movie only throws him in there for an obvious nod to the previous films. And yeah, it's good to see him in there, but at the same time, it's just like that's the only reason you do that here. But that moves into the other thing I have a problem with it. The writing. John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, they're not hack directors. They're not hack filmmakers. They're people that have their hearts in the right place. I don't hate their previous movies, Horrible Bosses or Colliding with a Chance of Meatballs 2. I just don't think they fully realize what makes John Hughes' movies so memorable to people. John Hughes would never write comedy the way this movie thinks comedy should work, at least in Hughes' prime. A lot of people forget that John Hughes made the first script for his own Vacation memories. You know, Hughes wrote the script from the first Vacation film as a fairly straight adaptation of the short story, with the exception of the ending that was rewritten and reshot after being thoroughly despised by preview audiences. A lot of that script that Hughes was writing was based on his life, and he always knew how to make good comedy without resorting to consistent gross-out or raunchy jokes. I mean, even in the first Vacation movie when he did that, it served a purpose. There was a reason why they were building that dog joke up with the picnic basket. I mean, that's funny, the way they presented it there. Even in Home Alone, he knew to keep the majority of the comedy centered on the slapstick, not to resort to gross-out humor, but to get a cheap laugh. This movie does nothing but resort to gross-out humor and raunchy jokes, and it suffers big time because of it. I mean, you see it in the trailer there with Chris Hemsworth, you know, his whole thing with the dick and all that. It's just like, it's one of the funnier bits in the movie, but you could tell that looks fake. That looks like a dildo they put on Chris Hemsworth there. That does not look like a real thing at all. I mean, and for some reason, Chris Hemsworth, they were trying so hard to put him in these 80s movies, and this one, it didn't work. And Ghostbusters, it did the following year, but we'll talk about that later. But the shit jokes, the dick jokes, they go on way too long, and there is way too many of them. That is not what Vacation is all about. The references are another thing that really bugged me. It's okay to reference things from previous movies, like having Holiday Road playing all over the film. I don't mind that because, yeah, that's the song you think of when you think of Vacation. And when I think of National Lampoon's Vacation, my first memory is the Lindsey Buckingham song. You know, Holiday Road, oh. Not like that, but you get the idea. Like the joke about the girl in the red Corvette that you saw in the trailer with Hannah Davis was a funny reference to the original film because it wasn't just a straightforward knockoff of the original film. They actually added a hook to it where, you know, she gets run over by a truck going the other way, because it's just like, why the fuck are you going in the same direction on a two-way street like that, on a two-way road like that? But it's when they plaster the references out in the open, like I said before, the line of "the new Vacation will stand out on its own." If by stand out on its own you mean it will be nothing but dick and shit jokes and unfunny references to the previous films, then yes, that is an accurate statement. I don't think that's what you were going for here, but something that also really bugged me is that they changed the characters around in this way too much to make the script work. Like, you also need to give us a reason to like your new characters. Christina Applegate, I think, is fine in this, but those two kids are so obnoxious in this. They were annoying. Even the younger brother, who I wanted to strangle like Bart Simpson. I was just like, would you shut up? It's just like, he is so annoying in this movie. I could go on with many other complaints that I have about this film, but instead, let's talk about the few positive things that I did like about the movie, because there are things I like. I did like some of the new characters. I liked two in particular that got the hardest laughs out of me were Chris Hemsworth as Audrey's husband, which I thought was pretty good, and Charlie Day playing the river rafting guy. He's only in it for a little bit, but I'll be damned if this bit's what actually funny, but maybe that's because I'm such a fan of his character from It's Always Sunny. I was thinking it's just Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia in that role. But also you have Keegan-Michael Key, Regina Hall, Nick Kroll, Caitlin Olsen, Michael Pena, Elizabeth Giles, and Elizabeth Giles, I thought, was somebody who was going to become one of those big breakout stars. Around the time that she was on this FX show, Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll with Dennis Leary, which was a really good show, a very underrated show that only lasted one season. But she does carry a lot of charisma on screen. She's only in the movie for a brief period, but she had the potential to become a really good comedic actress. But she kind of faded out of obscurity a little bit. The most notable thing she has done since then was worked with Seth MacFarlane on a bunch of albums, as well as being on Family Guy. But the jokes that do work in the trailer do work, but again, if the movie is letting out the best moments in the trailer, they have nothing else to work with. I mean, it's pretty obvious what they're trying to do here, but the biggest problem with the reboot is that it does nearly everything a bad reboot should do. It doesn't stay true to the original movies. It changes characters around to act like nothing like their previous personas. Its focus on comedy is gross-out humor, dick jokes, shit jokes. It's an insult to the writing style of John Hughes that made the first Vacation movie the classic that it is, and one that we still look upon this very day as one of the great comedies of all time. This is one of the worst reboots I've ever seen in my life. The worst R-rated comedy I've seen in a summer where you had a lot of lackluster films in general, but some good ones. Spy, Trainwreck. I mean, I'd rather watch the Entourage movie again. I'd rather watch Magic Mike XXL or, hell, Hot Pursuit. I would rather watch that. But this is awful. This is just awful. It's terrible. Stop remaking comedy classics if you're going to make them like this, because this is pathetic. It's embarrassing that they did this. Just inexcusable. Inexcusable. So let's go ahead and move on to a much better movie to wrap this show up with. Let's talk about Jason Segel and Jesse Eisenberg in The End of the Tour.
Best one I ever had.
A movie that makes you realize that, hey, Jason Segel's a pretty damn good dramatic actor. Not just as a good comedic actor, but, yeah, guy has a lot of chops. This is, of course, based off of the David Lipsky memoir, although, of course, you end up becoming yourself, which is about a 5-day road trip that Jesse Eisenberg's character has with the author David Foster Wallace. And, of course, Jason Segel and Jesse Eisenberg play these characters. It's directed by James Ponsoldt, who's directed The Spectacular Now from a couple years ago. And once again, it's a movie that you look at and you completely forget that Jason Segel is a really good actor, not just as a good comedic actor, but as a dramatic actor too. Something he'd later show with other projects down the road with, what was that show he did for AMC? Dispatches from Everything, I think it was. It was something for everything. Where is it? Dispatches from Elsewhere, that's what it's called. But he was also Paul Westhead on the Lakers TV series for HBO Winning Time. And he's pretty good on Shrinking on Apple TV+. But the guy is a really, really good actor in general here. And here he gets a chance to really show what he can do. You know, Jesse Eisenberg's always been a great actor. He's also been a pretty good writer, too. He was nominated, of course, for writing A Real Pain. But this is a great movie. One that did not get the proper attention, kind of got pushed off to the side when it came out, but nevertheless, it was still a really, really entertaining movie about this one person, David Foster Wallace, and Segel knocks it out of the park in this. This is a really good film for him, a really good chance to show what he can do as a dramatic actor in general. As I said, I liked it. I thought it was actually really fun overall. I thought it was a very good film. Definitely one worth checking out if you haven't seen it yet. If you want to see Segel in a definitely a different kind of performance overall, this one's definitely worth watching. I highly recommend it. The end of the tour. And that's the end of our show. That's going to wrap up another episode of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll take a look at a couple of movies, some big notable films, some not so good ones, especially our first film, Josh Trank's remake of The Fantastic Four with Miles Teller, Kate Mara, Michael B. Jordan, Jamie Bell, in a movie that you think should work, but no, it doesn't. We have Joel Edgerton making his directorial debut and starring alongside Rebecca Hall and Jason Bateman in The Gift. Meryl Streep stars in a new movie, Ricky and the Flash. Armin is back with a new animated movie, Shaun the Sheep movie, based off the character from the Wallace and Gromit short Close Shave. And then we have The Diary of a Teenage Girl, and also a Cop Car, which was directed by future Spider-Man director John Watts. So 6 films overall to take a look at to begin August, and we'll take a look at those films coming up tomorrow on the show. With all that said, though, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and do me the honors of hitting that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and don't forget to check out the previous episode we did. With all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.